From the Butler Cubs Athletic Association, it's a Coaches Roundtable. I'm Ed Codi. Welcome our guest, Butler Area School District Superintendent, Dr. Brian White. Dr. White, thanks for joining us. I know you have a lot on your plate these days. Let's go back and let's start with, I'm going to throw two things out for you and get your opinion. First, Governor Wolf's strong recommendation, no sports played till January 1st. And then just last week, the PIAA board voted 25-5 for fall sports to play. So your response to both of those?
Well, first off, I'm not a public health official, so I don't want to speak to the merits of this is for stopping a pandemic. But with that said, the inconsistency in the state's actions have been really frustrating. It's very frustrating to look at youth sports happen all summer, then tell our student athletes in venues that we can control a lot better to say you can't play. It's very frustrating to watch a car show with 20,000 people at it, but yet tell our soccer team with 25 kids, you can't play.
That was at Carlisle.
Out of Carlisle.
And they were not wearing masks.
They were not wearing masks. So, it's the inconsistencies, it's the last minute nature of these things. My understanding is the PIAA had been trying to work with the governor since in May, asking for guidance on these matters. And to come out a few weeks before school, as teams are already practicing, I think is really callous and really is disingenuous to how important some of these things are to the children's lives. It might absolutely be the right decision to do at some point, or even now, to say, hey, we shouldn't be engaged in these activities because it's not safe. But to do it in the last minute of a press conference as a casual answer to the public, we just undervalued everyone's efforts and what we try to do, what our kids try to do, what the parents have been working with them. It's not like the kids signed up to play sports on August 1st. Many of the kids have been playing for years for these sports, and this is the culmination of a lot of their work. So again, is the frustrating nature of the last minute casual decision making or projection of it that way. I would love to see moving forward where there's broad-based engagement with the athletic directors in the state, not just the PIAA, not just the WPIL. Engagement with the superintendents to ask us what is feasible, what's not feasible, how can we control crowds, what does work, what doesn't work. Now we are proceeding with athletics, but you still have the health department's orders. Some of them are really confounding.
So you have Butler High, Art Bernardi Stadium holds what, 7,500, 7,000,
about 7,000 people.
So
yeah.
You could adequately put 250 people in there.
Yeah, well,
and safely space them out.
Right. Let's use a football game as an example. Between the two teams, the staff and the employees involved, you might be at 150 people right there. So you don't have an extra 250 people under the 250 person rule. But right now, we're not allowed to have parents or spectators present. We play a game on Friday night. We have to limit our crowd to no crowd. We have to limit ourselves to coaches, players, and staff.
What about band and cheerleaders?
They're allowed. They're permitted as well if you can keep the whole total under 250 people. But come Saturday morning, the midget league can use our same field and can have a crowd in the stadium. Now that midget team isn't going to have school police there to monitor the stadium. They're not having game event managers to monitor social distancing. So I just find it frustrating that could we find a way to come to a compromise? And maybe it's we allowed two people per kid on the team that be present in a stadium that holds 7,000 people. So I don't understand the rules the way they have played out.
They're inconsistent.
They're inconsistent, and they lack practicability to different applications. For example, why is it not based off square footage? Montauk and Butler are going to have the same amount of people available to play in their stadium. If we play a high school football game at Heinz Field, the same number of people are going to be allowed to be present.
And I think North Allegheny holds over 10,000.
Right, and they're allowed the same numbers we are. So, I think this doesn't make common sense to folks, and it's very hard to defend on the phone when you're talking to people. And I have stopped defending. I'm charged with enforcing and implementing the governor's and the Secretary of Health's orders, which I do as a commission officer of the state. I have to enforce them.
So him not issuing a mandate and the PIAA approving play kind of puts the onus on individual school districts. And I hear some people ask if the state will support them in case of COVID-19 related lawsuits. So where's your position there? I know Beaver a school district, they're having the athletes and the students sign waivers.
So our students all did sign waivers as part of our athletic program. That was part of a return to play plan, so they did have to sign waivers for us. Where do I stand? You hit a couple issues here. You hit the PIAA's decision-making, which some of my colleagues are very frustrated with because they feel like the onus has now been put on the school districts.
Yes.
And also about liability. So let's, if you don't mind, take those both as sort of separate issues. I actually am pleased the PIAA did what they did. The community elects a local school board. That school board sets and adopts policies, hires and fires the superintendent. They should make the decision for their community, as it should have been since the beginning of this thing. Local community, local control. That's why there's 500 school districts in Pennsylvania. Not to have the most efficient form of education or government, but to have democracy control in place to be controlled. You know, it's very hard in Pennsylvania to have one person go change all the history books because there's 500 school boards that get to regulate that. So why wouldn't those 500 school boards be tasked with deciding what is safe for their communities? They should absolutely be watching what the health officials are saying. We're in contact with Butler Hospital and the county every week. Now the liability piece, all the school boards associations, superintendents associations, just about every professional association has asked the governor to extend his targeted limited liability protection. He extended the frontline workers as part of COVID to the school entities. In absence of that, we have to have waivers, and so that's where we're at.
So let me ask you, I ask this question all the time to coaches, athletic directors. What is a safe plan? I mean, you have to have a plan for the students when they're in school and then the student athletes when they're in practice. So I don't know what a safe plan is, and it may vary from district to district. What's your plan?
Well, our plan has been up to this point to enforce social distancing when the students are not in play. I mean, there's masks on the sidelines, there's 6 feet separating people. In practices, in warm-ups, spreading people out and keeping distance. That's not always possible when you're in game. There's going to be some exchange of close contact, particularly football and soccer, where you're in a close contact sport. The other end of this is keeping detailed records of who was where and when. So we are tracking every person who comes in and out of our practices on a daily basis. Our athletic director has been tracking that, so if there is a case that we can notify people in a timely manner and provide that information to the Department of Health so they can quarantine if
And
necessary.
COVID-19's, the testing is roughly, $45 a person? So if you're testing all your athletes, it can be quite expensive.
Yeah, so we don't test our athletes. That's something the Department of Health would order or direct someone to do, and they would go through their own physician. Or if it's one of our students, if they don't have health insurance, they'd most likely be eligible for CHIP.
So as school opens and the fall sports start, what are your biggest concerns as you get ready here?
Well, I'm worried like everyone else that we're going to have someone not think and make a poor decision and it shuts down our program. I look around the region, there's a couple examples of this already where a kid may not have been feeling good and showed up at practice anyways because we ingrained the sense of hard work and work ethic to our students to show up for practice and fight through things. This isn't the time to fight through things. If you have symptoms, you need to stay home because you actually might put your team in more peril than coming to practice.
Dr. White, you have a tough job, and I'm sure you have a lot more decisions that you're going to have to make here on the go as things occur. I wish you the best of luck and hope things go well for not only for Butler, but for all the school districts around.
Thank you.
I'll be right back with Ellen George. I am back, joined to my right by the Swami George Abraham, to my left by the Tiger Albert Campman. Let's go to Spotlight. It is brief, but it's going to grow in weeks to come with the start of fall sports. Pine Richland defensive end Miguel Jackson is 6'2", 265-pound senior. He is committed to Liberty University. We'll have a lot more coming in the ensuing weeks. Let's go to our stories of the week, and a big one, of course, is the PIAA board voted 25-5 to play sports this fall. Individual schools can opt out if they want. The WPL has given them until September the 1st if they decide to opt out. Some have, such as Uniontown, Summit Academy, Harrisburg has, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia schools have. So football can have a scrimmage September 4th. They open up September the 11th. All the other sports follow in after that. All sports teams in the fall have abbreviated schedules. So, guys, what do you think?
Well, it's great news for the kids. I'm still on the other side of it. I get nervous of what's going to break out, but I know kids don't think that way. They want to play.
Yeah.
And so-
Even though in the last few days in Connecticut, they've had an outbreak of COVID-19 with soccer players.
It's coming in Pennsylvania too.
Well,
I just don't know what school district is coming, but I predict it's coming.
Now, Governor Wolf has said his recommendation will not turn into a mandate, and yet he has ruled no fans. Actually, for the Steelers and the Eagles and Pitt are still waiting to see how many fans they can allow for games. Supposedly now for the outdoor events, for football games, you heard Dr. White here, 250, but you're counting the football teams, you're counting the coaching staffs, and so you may count cheerleaders, a small band unit. So where does that leave room? And there's no basis for it based on a stadium's attendance. Like Butler holds 7,000, now North Allegheny 10 or 12.
In other words, if it's 1,500, it's 1,500, whether they're packed in at Monticello
whether it's
or spread
Monticello-
out at Butler.
Right, it's 250.
And what's
In
interesting is
that
how big the
regard.
bands are. You understand? There's some bands that have 200 people themselves. So what are you going to tell them?
200, there's some that have
So what are
400.
you going to say to them? They can't come. That's why it's going to be crazy. It is.
Well, here's what Wolf has done. He's put the onus on the school districts. It's all on them. That's why some districts have asked for if there will be state help in case of COVID-19 related lawsuits. He has not responded to that, nor do I think he will. And while he says one thing, they had the car show in Carlisle, which he gave an exemption to. 20,000 people showed up, no mask.
20,000.
20,000.
They canceled the farm show, though.
They canceled it, but he gave an
So
exemption.
some are changing, some are not. We had a lawyer on our show on Saturday. Said something really interesting. The schools cannot be sued. How about that? So they'll go full ahead. He said only the PIAA, yes, can be, but not any school district is in good shape.
Beaver's had their students and athletes sign waivers. Butler's done the same thing.
He said you
Sign
don't have
waivers.
to worry about the waivers. He said
Well,
because they can't. He has the law. He read the law to us. The school districts are out of it.
Right,
So
he
that's
knows
nice.
what he's talking about, but every school district has a solicitor, so I'm sure Dr. White went to the school solicitor and said, what do you think
Oh, I
about
agree with that.
waivers?
I
And
agree.
they probably said, go ahead.
I think you want. I
issue
think
the
you want to protect
waivers.
yourself, Eddie. You're right.
Well, the parents would sign them, though. Wouldn't be the kids signing them.
Parents have to sign.
Parents
correct.
have to sign,
Yes.
right, it has to be an adult who's signing
Right.
it. And in Beaver, the parents said, that's fine with them, they'll sign anything as long as the kids can play.
They wanna
You've
play.
seen kids demonstrating all across the western Pennsylvania to play.
Sure. And I saw the signs up at Pine, that the parents were like putting signs out for their different children in different, activities saying, let them do it.
It's going to be a short football season, 7 conference games only, and then abbreviated playoffs.
And they had to do that.
And the
So-
same thing with volleyball and soccer
Everything.
and cross country.
Yeah, the MAC championships were canceled in tennis yesterday, so I know that's out. That's a big thing every year. That's out. So they're looking through this and making sure they're thinking it through. I just don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does really.
I want to know who's doing the counting, and then the parents are there and say, okay, stop. We've hit 250
Yeah, Mrs.
with
Joe
Joe
not
Ball.
gonna happen.
You're out,
You
you're
can't,
in.
you
Yeah.
can't come in, and they lock the gates. But a lot of the stadiums, you could stand around the periphery and still watch.
That's what they're going to do.
That's
I
what they're
saw
gonna
I saw three schools said they're going to use their heels and use the things
Now,
to watch the game.
now, are they going to go down into those areas and stop
No, they
them
can't
from
stop that. They
tailgating?
can't stop that,
That's what
no.
I'm saying. They can't do that.
They can't stop it.
And you see the band kids, they're practicing.
Sure.
The drill teams,
Practicing hard.
there's no social
They're right
distancing.
outside, right outside my thing without any masks.
That's the thing that bothers you, that they're supposed to have masks, and when you drive by or you look and they don't.
Well, that's the same thing happened at the car show. 20,000 people with no mask.
That is that's the big bugaboo out there. That people just don't believe it's going to happen to them. That's what you think until it happens. I understand that.
College football, the NCAA under siege, not only from the outside, but now they're breaking of the ranks on the inside. And we've talked about this at length before. The question is, can it survive as it now exists? You know what my answer is to that is no, because the Power 5 conferences, they're in serious talks. They want the fall championships. They want them played. And I think they're going to thumb their nose at the NCAA and do it. The basic reason is money. That's a basic reason. And when you look at the Big Ten and the Pac-12 have dropped out, the Big 12 staying in, I think, saved college football because they weren't sure what they were going to do after the SEC and the ACC committed. But if they had dropped out, I think it would have killed college football. Now, do you agree with Commissioner Bowsby of the Big 12? He said if there was no football in the Big 12, all sports would be canceled for the entire 2020-21 year. Kind of drastic.
No, he's covering himself, and that's what they do. But see, the thing about it is, with these guys, there are other leagues playing. Like, a lot of people forget. Like, they're all looking for game one. Like, Pitt's looking for a first game.
Or they're going to have a scrimmage or whatever they're going to.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah.
You can call more fake punts down in the goal line.
But that's just around the corner, and still they don't know.
No, they don't know.
They don't know how many fans they could have in.
No.
And Art Rooney said he's been talking to Wolf's office for weeks now and can't get a decision.
Because they
Same
don't
thing
know
with
either.
the Eagles.
Because Wolf's office doesn't know either.
Well, make
No,
a decision.
That's what he said.
He's the governor.
But I
The
think
buck
he's trying to
stops
wait
there.
as long as he can. I mean, I think you wait as long as you can to see what's going on. They want it made now. But if I'm Wolf, I'll make it wait as long as I can to make a
I
decision.
talked to some Pitt season
I don't think you
ticket
know.
holders
Well, he
last
didn't
night.
wait too long on Carlisle.
I don't think you know.
No.
He didn't wait too long.
Yeah,
Why
I
did he
talked
give
to
in
some
an
of them
exemption?
last night, Pitt people, and they haven't heard yet. They haven't heard it. Same with the basketball. They haven't heard anything. You know, and you figure, like at Penn State, 100,000 seats, just say 100 a ticket, which that's $10 million. I wouldn't mind having it in the bank for a year.
When you mentioned that, Happy Valley's not happy because those businesses, they count on football
Absolutely.
season and they're taking a huge beating this year financially.
Legal, health, financial. All three of those go in, and every time I take out legal, throw it down. I take out health, throw it down. Financial wins every time. That's the one that's winning.
Well, here's what COVID-19 has done with college football. It's never going to be the same. Athletes organizing, the names, image, and likeness, and the big two, autonomy and money, are going to rule, and that's where we're going to have this big break. The Power Five is going to move away and have their own deal.
Well, that's what Eddie's been saying all along, and it looks like they're getting their break to do it right now. It's the perfect timing to do it.
By the way, in Tuscaloosa, the mayor there shut down all the bars and restaurants. They've had an outbreak of
had to.
COVID-19 on campus. 531 students have come down with it because they're going. We said this before. We're not surprised. We understand it. This is what kids do. They come back. They want to get together, socialize, and party. And they go to the bars.
That's what 18-years-olds do.
The chancellor at Pitt said, if a kid from a dorm is caught at a party, they're going to throw them out?
For the semester.
What is this guy, a czar or something?
It's something, if they're at whatever a small party is. What is a small party?
Exactly.
2 people, 3
Hey, it was
people,
small
4
when it
people?
started, that's
If
what-
it's 10,
Yeah.
and it grows, like, people don't hear about it. Someone gives someone a text message and they show up. And you mentioned about Pitt. So what do they do? Narduzzi says they're playing on September 12th. Who are they playing? Robert Morris?
He's in.
That Robert Morris trip was canceled
Yeah.
out to Hawaii.
Right, yes.
So-
How about,
Are they allowed to play Robert Morris?
we'll have to look the
They
schedule
would
up
be.
and see who they could play.
Their
Well, they-
conferences?
Well, they could.
They
They
could
could
play.
play.
They could play.
I thought Robert Morris was part of that one that Youngstown's in, and they're not having football.
They aren't. They're not.
They're not having it.
No, but so it could be whoever it is, right?
I don't think they find anyone to play. They would have
I don't
found
either.
someone
He
by
went to
now.
rent a
at this-
victim. He went to rent a victim because he had Miami, Ohio. He doesn't want to play.
Well, Miami, Ohio wouldn't have been an easy game for them.
No,
They're
but-
the defending MAC champs, and
But,
they have a lot
but
of players
compared
back.
to whomever
Compar-
he will.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Compared
you're
to
talking
Clemson.
SEC, ACC,
So
Big
the
12.
next game is would be for Pitt. Then the 19th of September
Yeah.
would actually be their
League game.
opener and a league game. Be interesting to see what happens at that point.
Hey, they got no favors taking their schedule, taking the 3 off and added who they added. Pitt got no favors, but not like Arkansas.
And next week, we're going to come back with our preseason top 10, but I am not including any teams from the Pac-12 or the Big Ten. They're not playing. Why rank them?
Yeah, you can't put them in there.
I'm not going to
I
do
agree.
it.
State was at 7, and I'm thinking, why are you ranking them? They're not playing.
I'm going to get you guys your take on this issue, and column written by Gene Collier in the Post-Gazette, August 16th, Ethical Issues, where he's saying pro players and college players get readily tested for COVID-19 and the results come back immediately, whereas the population in general, they have to wait in long lines. See Dodger Stadium, where they tons of cars filling it and people were getting tested, and then it may take weeks
He's
to
stealing my stuff.
get their report
I
back.
said that weeks ago. These people were waiting 2 weeks for the test back. They might as well quarantine and be done with it.
So is it an ethical issue?
Yes.
I mean, the world we would like it to be versus the reality of it, the rich, the powerful, and the privileged, that's what they
Been like
get.
that forever.
been-
That was my answer going to be to you.
Yeah.
It's been like that since my great-great-grandparents were born. If you got money and you can find a way to get it done, they'll get it done. For the normal people like us three, you're waiting in line. I got tested. I had to wait in a car line, long line, and it took, it was good, 3 days. Came back in 3 days.
The NBA's at the front of that quick testing model. They have done something good out of this bubble.
Those have been the biggest crowds for baseball, the crowds at Dodger Stadium lined up for COVID-19 testing.
Well, Pittsburgh, it would definitely be a big crowd.
Well, freedom of the press or Kremlin West. How about the NFL and even Major League Baseball controlling what the press in terms of saying or writing things about players and injuries? A beat writer at the Steelers made a comment about Roethlisberger wasn't following through in his throws, and I guess they asked him to leave. And Green Bay told the sports writers, you can't speculate on the starting lineups. What is this? I never heard of this before.
Never heard of this before either. I didn't know what was going on, and you just taught me something. Write what you want to write, and then we'll see what
Freedom of
happens.
the- but if they do, they're barring them from the facilities.
Pittsburgh's
To
been
cover
the
the
worst
teams.
at that forever. Every time something about somebody skipping out of practice, Antonio Brown, number 52, sleeping in meetings, it's always a national guy that breaks the story. It's never one of the quote-unquote insiders.
So what do we make? Other people say, oh, Roethlisberger looks great, and this beat writer said he's short-arming his passes. He's not following through. Is his elbow bothering him? Others say he looks great. To me, there's something there in that the Steelers didn't like that comment.
Absolutely.
Well,
They don't want the other teams to know.
Roethlisberger's got his elbow operated on it. I don't think he can be throwing that well yet. And it's not a surprise to me that he's still working back to get in shape.
What
And
was so wrong
Nothing wrong
for,
with
the,
it.
for that
Nothing-
writer
nothing
to,
wrong with it.
to
There
say
is a
that?
First Amendment, and we're starting to get to some dangerous area here when you start telling him what he can write.
When you tell writers in Green Bay they can't speculate on the lineup,
Absolutely.
How do you prevent them from doing that?
Absolutely.
Well, you know how they prevent them.
Yeah.
They don't
Look at
get
the
a
list.
they don't get
Ed Codi, you're not on here.
You're not in the press box
Yeah,
this
exactly.
week. You're not allowed to cover the teams, and that's what they do. They become vindictive,
Oh,
and it's wrong. It's against everything that should be in terms of the First Amendment freedom of press.
Absolutely.
And they're censoring them. In pro football, I hear comments. Well, so and so's looking great in training camp, and to me, it's just a grain of salt. It doesn't mean a thing. You have no exhibition games, and you could look as great as you want in practice till you get to the games. We don't know about some of these players.
every level, junior high through pros, there's guys that are practice players, and there's guys that line up on that real day and can play. And
That's right.
you've seen it.
We've
want the
seen
guys.
it.
I want the guys who can line up on that real day and can play. I don't care how well they practice. I want to. That's why.
So more than ever, paring the roster down is guesswork.
Absolutely. The days of like undrafted this, undrafted that, it won't be this year because they have no way to see them.
At least when we coached in high school basketball or football, you had scrimmages.
That's how you judge.
And you went against some other teams. You had
Yes,
2 football
yes,
scrimmages. You had how many basketball
Yes.
scrimmages?
No, it's different.
You could make an evaluation, but right now it's not possible. So
I think the evaluation, in my mind, is once again, come back, the third time I said it today, guys, is financial. If this guy's pretty close to this guy, and I'm going to pay this guy $4 million and this guy $2 million, I'm keeping the $2 million guy.
hey, another league folded, and it was a Canadian league. Canadian Football League has folded. They will not be playing this year. And March Madness, how about this? They're already looking ahead for a safety and success exhibited by the NBA and the National Hockey League.
It works.
They're looking for a bubble next March.
No question.
For March Madness.
That's a no-brainer, Eddie. That one, I'm 100% there's going to be a bubble for
You
the
know,
NCAA
but
tournament.
you think about the logistics. You're going to have to fly 64 college teams in early.
Right.
Because the chance of their coming from all over really expedites the chance of something going wrong.
Yep, they'll have it down pat, though.
They'll have it down.
They're planning this one right now.
They don't want to lose. They
They're not
don't want to
losing
lose
that.
that
Can't lose the
TV
billion.
revenue.
No, they're the billions and billions of dollars.
We
They're
agree.
having it.
Hey, Major League Baseball, the Pirates are on the roll. There's a parade going on in Pittsburgh. They swept the Brewers. They're now 7-17. 4 of their 7 wins against the Brewers. Polanco raises his average up to 150. and GM Charrington says no one's off limits come the trade deadline. What does that mean?
Means that everybody should go.
Well, who wants them?
That's right.
Nobody wants them.
Who wants them?
No.
What pitcher would
Polanco's
you want?
Polanco is the guy that nobody can figure out. Like when he plays well, they look like a real team. When he plays bats 70, you might as well think they're a minor
And
league
Bell
team.
at his salary is untradeable.
Nobody will take him.
And guys, baseball as we know it, I think it's forever changed. Look at the Marlins. They're 11-11. They'll play 27 games in 23 days, 4 doubleheaders in 10 games, the 7-inning games. It's the end of baseball as we know it.
Yeah, we've been saying that all along. First of all, the analytics changed that part of it, and now how they represent their pitching staffs is completely changed with this short season. What do you do on all these doubleheaders?
Hey, this Hader's the best reliever in baseball. He didn't pitch a pitch against the Pirates all weekend, and they got swept.
And they have 16 pitchers on their
Well,
staff.
there you go.
They're not going to use them unless they're ahead. That's
Exactly.
why. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Hey, National Hockey League, the Pens not likely to keep Matt Murray. They're going to stick with Jari and Smith next year. How about this in Las Vegas? Do you ever hear of this? Marc-Andre Fleury, he was benched by his coach, even though he was 2-0, but his goals against average was .250. His agent, Adam Walsh, put out on Twitter an illustration of Fleury in the uniform in goal with a sword impelled through
stabbed
him
in the back.
with Coach Peter DeBoer on it. Are we losing our minds
Yeah,
anymore?
That's pitiful. That is pitiful. And Fleury's a good guy. So I guarantee you, I mean, he's been known, and he stepped up right off the bat and said something. I mean, you don't do, these agents are out of control. These people that are in charge of
They run
they're
You
nuts.
can't even let a coach make a decision
Can't,
there.
yes.
No, they
on
the agents
anything.
run pro sports.
They do.
Now, you talk about looking ahead. The National Hockey League is looking at the start of the 2020-21 season in December. Here's what they're looking at. 4 bubble cities with no fans, which for them is critical because 37% of their revenue is from ticket sales, more than any other sport. So you wonder, how is hockey going to survive? They don't generate the TV revenue that the other sports do.
Somebody's out there is negotiating some contracts with TV and trying to make this work. Because I don't know how. You're right. It's hard. It's hard.
37%.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
The NFL is only like around 16%.
Yes.
The NFL, if they don't have spectators this year, they're still going to make their bundle
Absolutely.
Yes,
of
they
money.
know that, too.
Television. See, hockey is so regional.
Yes.
That's the deal.
Hey, I'm going to note here, finally, a comment in passing. Former Butler High School star lineman and linebacker James Buster Nastasi. He was a little All-American linebacker at Geneva College. He's in both the Butler and Geneva Sports Hall of Fames. He passed away at the age of 81. He was just a great, great player there at Butler in the 50s. We have run out of time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.